I am the contrarian, and this is my world.
Hi, I'm Nitin Gupta, CEO at We. Today I'm going to talk about how we are revolutionizing how young Indians are finding their true love.
Love in time of technology. You know, it's a very delicious term. As I say it, I think I should write a book about this. I think it'll be an amazing bestseller. But this is really also the truth. With a huge amount of things that have entered our space, which is also an actual lack of time, a very difficult way of actually setting up a date, meeting people, actually having interpersonal relationships. What came to save all of us? Once again, it's online, it's the app world, and once again, we are going to talk about the most delicious term I've used in a long time, love in time of technology. Now, is this good? Is this bad? Will it become better? And especially, what's the Indian context? Can you really fall in love online? Well, we're about to find out. First, about a minute to you just to describe, is this a better world? This may be a world that is necessary, but is this a better world?
I think it's like a world which is factors better. And the reason being that, I say from our whole traditional angle of how we have approached this whole domain, right? Look at the new age Indians, right? Their lives are getting busier day after day. The social circle, the times that you are getting, you don't even have time to pursue a hobby, Take about the fact that you're going to meet someone really interesting and, try to think, you're going to spend a life with. Technology helps you over there. Right?
I'm just going to ask you to backtrack a little.
Sure.
Okay. The first thing you said is that this is a much better world, right? I said this is a much better world because of necessity. Okay. You immediately use the word how busy we are, how difficult it is to approach somebody in real life. How can you really come to know what is the kind
Absolutely.
of interdynamics you have with that person?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
But is it a better world? We'll get down to the fact that, you can't ignore the current situation.
Sure.
But is it a better world than, let's say, 10 or 20 years back where you would only meet with friends?
Yeah.
There was a quality to who you would meet.
Right.
There were no surprises at that time because, if you were to meet somebody and you were to click, you actually clicked. In this world, you first of all, you click and you actually get to somebody. You haven't clicked with them. You just
Right.
click and you've got to somebody.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's that trauma and shock of the online becoming offline. And you're like, the number of people that post on a dating site, oh my God, finally met him. It was a complete disaster. He was totally different from what I had made him up in my mind. So how is this better? Necessary,
Sure,
yes.
sure.
Better?
The point that you are trying to make that, the shock part, right? You met someone and, he turned out to be really different. If you use technology, you are anyway spending that amount of time on, let's say, an app. After getting connected, you are actually spending a lot of time in having these chat conversations. The whole, interesting social data about the person, which is anyway available publicly, right? And he's talking about it. He's talking about, what places he's visiting. He's talking about what kind of food he likes to eat. He's talking about, all interesting friends that you have.
But you're forgetting the fact that there are so many studies, and in fact, what studies? We all know it, we do it ourselves, that most of what I say online is a drama, is a creation of my own mind, is what I aspire to be one day. So I may eat a kind of food one day, but I want everybody to think, that's my normal diet, man. I'm very cool, and I only eat this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the holiday I go to, and all the fake pictures, and everything that you do online is an aspiration for your personality that you actually want to be. How many very lonely people have 700 friends on Facebook? How many people who have no social life talk about the amount of partying that they do? So isn't this actually a dramatic exaggeration of the same?
So traditionally, why it won't work on a platform like this is anybody and everybody would be able to enter into the platform and, start doing stuff. So the approach primarily is what makes the difference. So like, for example, the approach of doing a super curation, and I'll take a very simple example of how a curation work on a platform like us. You are married, you won't be able to enter. You are above 40 years of age, you won't be able to enter. You have less than 50 friends, you won't be able to enter. Even after you enter, you go through a manual curation exercise. We look
So
at
you actually manually filter
curate
and
each and
curate
every
each and every person?
male profile which is entering
Every
into
male
the system,
profile. Okay,
and also
let-
female
let-
profile. But the measures, the criteria over which you are judging them is different, right?
Okay,
So you will judge a male differently than you will judge a female, right?
Okay.
So we look at the pictures, we look at what you have written in the profile, we look at your education, your profession, which is obviously a very high area of assertion for us, and then after you passes through all these checks and balances, then you are able to enter into the platform. Where were these checks and balances earlier? There was no system which has been built earlier which solves this problem of reduce the spam.
After all of this has happened, I've entered, I'm actually, what am I really building? I mean, that entire exercise and a reward at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
What is it? The pot of gold is actually virtual. It's quite fake.
No.
So what am I building? The interpersonal dynamics are whatever I can experience online.
Yep.
The profile and what I'm building up, the image of the person is exactly the same as whatever that person is trying to project as an aspirational personality of theirs online. What am I building here?
Sure. So the ultimate holy grail, the ultimate end of the funnel, as we say, is you actually take a call whether you really want to meet this person offline and take it forward, right? But you have done enough, you have spent enough time in having a conversation with that person, looking at the profile, shortlisting, making up your mind that, it is worth meeting this person, right? And ultimately it converges to a physical meeting, in the offline world. And, that's how you take it forward.
What have you seen as a difference between maybe studies that have been done abroad about dating sites
Yep.
and what you're running right now?
Yep.
Are there more committed people here? Do you have any statistics on how many people
Sure.
actually have a long-term relationship from
Yeah.
here? Did
Yeah.
people get married? How is it different from something that's happening abroad?
I would like to answer it with the testimonials that we are getting, right? So one of the interesting aspects which happens in India, a female user sending an email saying that from the time I started using a platform like this, my confidence have increased because she's not really that good looking, and so she won't, she will feel hesitant approaching, guys who he might be liking in her study place or workplace. But then being on a platform gives her a immediate social gratification that you are being liked by people.
So my last question is really all about this entire space now.
Yeah.
Okay. You're doing something which is committed, curated, very well worked out. You're thinking this is India, therefore the context must be great. All good. But there's this entire space has many players. And the predominant idea is not to get people together, but to create a very valuable online business.
Yeah.
So, the people coming to you are coming for a purpose, but your
Absolutely.
purpose is to create a very valuable, so you can be bought out by somebody or whatever. I mean, there are purposes. Look,
Yeah.
online businesses are all about that. Let's not run away from that fact, right?
Yeah.
So there are different reasons why you're
Sure.
doing it versus why people are coming to you. So thus, many people have different experiments. You have the Tinders of this world, which are very, very brutal in approach, right? I mean, it's the hot or not of this generation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So does that make your entire business a little sleazy eventually? Because you're still in one space,
Yeah.
right?
So I would, I think the space is much, much larger. And if you compare to, let's say, a global competitor, look at the approach. It's still a very Indian problem, right? I mean, you experience the platform that they would have done. It's a very game-like an experience, very, very heavily dependent on the image, right?
Correct.
You basically
In
take
fact,
the
that's
call.
pretty much it.
You
Yeah.
basically take the call based on what that 10 second of fame is going to look
But
like.
still,
right?
they are counted in your space. That's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
Sure,
that-
sure.
So therefore, is that maybe the biggest problem you face right now?
No, I think, we start with one problem, which is basically making people meet, making interesting people meet. But if you think about the space, it's not just dating, but more social discovery, right? That's like a much huge, larger space. And, we try to look at not a global competitor, but a person like a Momo in China. Just to take an example. And exactly the same socio-economic setup, right?
Okay.
The problem with a country like China or India is more social discovery. And then, this is like the first step.
Right.
The other, steps that you will take to ultimately broaden your horizon is having interest-based conversations, having, making people meet, which might be from same profession. Like, me connecting to you and having interesting discussions around technology. I would not be able to meet someone like you if there is no platform like that. You might be on the platform, and then we might be having an interesting conversation, not here, but on the mobile app, on our interest-based conversation. The domain is like much, much larger.
So you say the space is much larger than for a few players to actually bring
Absolutely.
it down. Okay,
Absolutely.
so now you're going to do something which every single person, lots of people watching the show right now, and a lot of those people, you know who you are looking for love. One big tip to actually make this happen. So away from the typical things of make yourself sound more interesting, a better picture, should be a solo. like I've given a tip right now,
Yep.
the one thing that you know makes the biggest difference?
I think, you know what, it's very simple question. It's the conversation, right? Crack the conversation really nicely. The technology helps
So you
us.
should have a professional scriptwriter sitting next to you while you're chatting?
No, we do the job. We do the job. The technology does the job, right?
Okay.
And I didn't talk about it, and let me just talk about it. Glad you asked this question. You are talking to some person, you can just say #tip, right? And I may just tell that, you know what,
Really?
Rajiv Makhni seems to like Aam Aadmi Party, right? Why don't you crack a conversation on that? And then I'm like, okay, how much do you like Arvind Kejriwal, right? So
So these are taken from within my profile of what I may have as...
Right. So it's like having an invisible friend sitting between you two and then trying to make it work.
So you're changing it from the blind date to something which is
really
actually a
interesting
little
and
bit
meaningful,
more.
right? So Indian male, they
So would
won't
you
go
say that this is a little, is this, it's great. I think it's an amazing thing that you're actually doing this, but is this a little bit more like, okay, may not be my interest, but I'm going to anyway talk to the person about it. So again, going back to that whole, I'm faking it a little with that person.
Yeah, well, it's the problem being, what is the traditional problem? And, I have to say this, Indian male won't know how to crack a conversation. They won't go beyond a hi or a hello.
You heard that here, not from me, but from him. Okay.
Well, right, so how do you solve this problem, right? And then obviously that's like a, traditional social setup. We are getting into our minds thinking, yeah, how do I crack this conversation? And then if I can provide a little help in making that happen, then ultimately I cannot be there forever, right? Ultimately it's between you two who have to take it offline and take the conversation
Okay,
forward.
great. Thank you so much. I think love in time of technology seems to have improved a lot more than we expected to be. Thank you so much for being on the show. So if you are looking for love, then this may well be the way to go. Don't think about just your friends. They know only a few people. Don't think about family. They only want to get you married, and of course to somebody that they think would be perfect for you, maybe very different. You've got all the tips you need right now. It's not a stigma anymore. Go out there. Make sure you meet a lot more people. And like he said, you'll meet a lot of people that you may never have met before. Love in time of technology. You're ready for it. See you next week.